The morning began like any other. I was sipping my usual black coffee, curled up in my worn chair by the window that overlooked the quiet cul-de-sac of our Atlanta suburb. The silence was comforting, steady, predictable. That's how I liked my days. Working from home gave me the rhythm I craved, a rhythm built over years of scraping by, saving slowly, breathing only when bills were paid and a few dollars were tucked safely away. That morning, the light streamed through the blinds in soft strips. I had just wrapped up a conference call and reached for my phone to check my bank account, something I did daily, almost habitually. I liked seeing the numbers lined up, the balance steady. It reminded me I was doing okay. That I had control. But the moment I logged in, I felt the breath leave my body. $15,000 withdrawn. I blinked. Refreshed the page. Again. No mistake. The transaction was real. I sat still for a few seconds. Not panic. Not yet. Just a strange, hollow thud in my chest. I checked the details. Family vacation, travel luxe. A minute later, my phone rang. I recognized the number, my bank's fraud department. Hi, this is Samantha from Atlantic Federal. We're calling to confirm a $15,000 transfer made earlier this morning for a luxury family vacation. Did you approve this? I couldn't speak for a second. My voice cracked when I answered. A what? The charge was made using your online banking credentials, she continued calmly, unaware that my world was slipping out beneath me. We just wanted to confirm it wasn't fraudulent. My jaw tightened. You've got to be kidding me. No, ma'am. The access point was verified through your home network and usual devices. We wanted to be sure. My hands trembled. I knew that password had never left my lips. No, I did not authorize this. I have no idea what this is. Are you sure this isn't a hack? We ran checks. It wasn't a third-party breach. It came from someone who had access to your login, someone trusted. Someone trusted, I repeated, barely hearing myself. And that's when it clicked. I hung up, and without even thinking, I called my parents. My mom answered on the third ring, her tone as breezy as ever. Hey honey. Everything okay? I forced my voice to steady. Did you book a vacation? Using my savings account? There was a pause. Then, casually, oh, that. Yes, we used your account for the deposit. It's for your sister's 40th birthday trip. I couldn't breathe. You used my money? We'll pay you back, she said, almost annoyed that I was even asking. You weren't using it. And it's family. Dad chimed in faintly in the background. Come on, kiddo. It's just a trip. Don't make this a thing. I gripped the edge of the table. You didn't even ask me. You're single, Mom said bluntly. No kids. You don't need it like she does. And she's been having a hard time. It wasn't the money that stung. It was the casual theft. The assumption that I didn't matter. That what I had built for myself could be taken without question because I didn't fit the mold they respected. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just sat there, jaw clenched, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my neck. My hands were cold. A line had been crossed, but they acted like there was no line at all. After the call, I found myself staring at a photo on the fridge, me and my sister as kids, both smiling, her arm draped over me like she owned the moment. That had always been the story. Growing up, it was always her. She got the bigger slice, the newer bike, the the louder praise. When she missed curfew, Dad defended her. When I got straight A's, they'd nod and move on. I remembered Grandma once whispering, "Some people are born to serve, others to be celebrated." I hadn't understood it then. I do now. I'd been the cushion, the backup plan, the emergency fund, literally now. That evening, my phone buzzed again. A message from my sister. "Heard you're upset. It's just a vacation. Don't be so dramatic." No apology. No thanks. No recognition that what she did was wrong. Just more entitlement. More of what I'd always let slide. And for the first time, I heard myself think it, why do I keep letting this happen? I hovered over the bank's app, considering whether to reverse the transaction, to call and freeze the funds. My finger paused over the screen. But something held me back. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. It was the weight of years. Of roles played too well. Of not wanting to be the problem child. Of always trying to keep the peace. But there was no peace in me anymore. Just a deep, sharp quiet. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and whispered, how many times will they cross a line I didn't even know I drew? I woke up groggy, but not from lack of sleep, from too much thinking. The kind that weighs down your chest and doesn't let you breathe quite right. Sunlight slipped through the blinds, and I stayed still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, hearing my own words from last night echo back, how many times will they cross a line I didn't even know I drew? That question didn't fade with daylight. I got out of bed and opened my laptop, heart racing like I was chasing something I didn't want to catch. I pulled up my bank account, digging past the recent blow and looking at every transaction for the last 6 months. Then I saw it. A line item marked, Joint Family Emergency Fund Withdrawal. My stomach turned. That fund. I had set it up years ago. I remembered sitting at the bank with Dad and Callista, signing as a co-signer, with the promise that it would be used only if all parties agreed. Back then, it felt like a mature, responsible move. Now it felt like the dumbest mistake I'd ever made. Digging further, I found something worse. An email auto-forwarded from my old account, now inactive. A confirmation from a travel agent. It included my name, my account, my authorization. Except I'd never touched that booking. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. Coordinated. I started printing statements, screenshots, email headers, timestamps. I didn't know what I'd do with them yet, but I needed it all in front of me, proof that I wasn't crazy. Late morning, I drove across town to my parents' place. No warning, no appointment. The driveway was empty except for Dad's truck. When Mom opened the door, she looked surprised, but not the good kind. I didn't wait for an invitation. I need to talk. She stepped back silently. I walked in, keeping my eyes forward, past the same dusty framed photos that had hung there since I was a teenager. Dad was in the kitchen, pouring coffee. "I'm not here to argue," I began, voice tight. "I just want the truth." He didn't look up. "Yara, you're making too much of this." I laid the printouts on the counter between us. "You used an emergency account. My name is on this. There's a digital trail." He sipped his coffee. "It's a misunderstanding." "A $15,000 misunderstanding?" I asked. Mom stood by the fridge, arms crossed, saying nothing. I turned to her. Did Callista know? Did she ask for this? She finally answered, "She's stressed, planning everything." Don't bother her with this right now. That sentence hit harder than it should have. Not because it was cruel, but because it was familiar, dismissive, expected. I left without slamming the door. That would have been too satisfying for them. Back home, I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand. I texted Callista. Once. Twice. Then I called. Nothing. I sent another message. This time, direct. Did you know this was my money? No reply. A few hours later, I scrolled through Instagram, don't ask me why, just instinct, and there she was. Her post from the airport, matching shirts, passports in hand, smiling wide. The caption read, "Family first. Always." My hands went cold. My chest tightened. Not even a text back, but she had time for that? I screenshotted it and saved it. I didn't know why. Maybe to remind myself this wasn't just about money. It was about being invisible. Callista's husband, Aaron, flashed through my mind. He worked in finance. He'd handled our taxes once, back when I still believed in helping family no matter what. I went digging again, old email threads, a shared folder we'd used for a refund one year. And there it was. A note from him. Saved your banking info in case I need it for future returns. That sentence used to sound helpful. Now it read like a confession. They didn't stumble into this. They engineered it. The betrayal felt heavier because it wasn't sloppy. It was efficient. And that made it worse. This wasn't just thoughtless. It was heartless. I couldn't sit with it anymore. I needed to hear a sane voice. Over lunch, I met up with Marvin from work. He was older, always grounded. We talked about logistics projects for a few minutes, then I told him everything. He didn't flinch. Just listened. Then said, people don't stop crossing lines unless you show them where they are. Simple. Brutal. True. I walked home in silence, those words looping in my head. At my desk, I opened a blank email. Fingers hovering, I started to type. I am considering legal action if the funds are not returned. That was it. One sentence. Clear. No emotion. I didn't send it. Not yet. But for the first time since this started, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel wrong for being angry. I felt ready. That night, I didn't dream about them apologizing. I dreamt about what I'd say in court. I opened the legal folder and found something ordinary, a birthday card from Callista, bright and cheerful, from years ago. It said, "To the sister who always has my back." I ran my fingers over the handwriting and remembered the times I did just that, back when I believed the words were genuine. Then I remembered the college savings loan. Callista needed help during a crisis, and I let her use my account. No paperwork. No timeline. Just a nod and "I'll pay you back when things settle." When they didn't, it slipped away like water. No mention afterwards. My family didn't ask. I didn't push. I told myself it was okay. Loyalty matters, I said. Family first, I said. But this time it felt different. I realized the card and the missing money weren't isolated. They were connected. A pattern emerged. I had become the cushion for their mistakes and the silent account they assumed existed. The emergency fund I helped establish now looked like their secret piggy bank. I invited Jules, an old friend, for coffee. She listened and then said, "You kept giving her the benefit of the doubt. You believed she wouldn't do this on purpose." I sat in the cafe, looked at her across the table, and saw the truth. I protected her in my head. I protected them in my heart. For years. Jules described a holiday party where Callista joked, "Whatever happens, Odessa will fix it." There were laughs around the room. I froze. That phrase wasn't funny. It was exposure. Dinner at my parents' home was like walking into a rehearsal of approval. Every joke, every glass of wine, every shared story was about Callista, her accomplishments, her brand, her bright future. I sat there with a quiet coffee, and I realized I was the card holder of all their praise. I contributed. I helped. I saved. I asked for nothing. I studied the expressions, the patterns, the silent looks they shared when I spoke. When I mentioned the bank call, Dad's gaze dropped. Mom's fork paused midair. No acknowledgement followed. Just plates clearing and small talk about weather. I rose from the table without explanation. I stepped into my car, started the engine, and drove through Savannah's quiet streets. The sound of tires on asphalt was my only companion. I clicked on a podcast titled "When Silence Becomes Complicity." The host said, "Silence isn't peace, it's allowance." My chest tightened. I pulled over and wrote in a notebook, "I am not the family scapegoat any longer." I listed all the times I folded, gave in, saved them. I leafed through memories, stapled to each one a new sentence, "This is not okay. I deserve recognition. I choose boundaries." Morning arrived with clarity. I composed an email to Aaron, professional, direct. I'd appreciate financial transparency regarding the fund that withdrew $15,000 from an account I co-owned. I copied none of the emotion. I printed a summary and placed it on my parents' porch in an envelope labeled "Documentation Enclosed." I walked back to the car, heart faster than usual, but face steady. I told myself, I'm not causing drama, I'm stating fact. For the first time, I felt the shift. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was visible. And ready. The email arrived just after lunch, bright, cheery subject line, "All expenses paid, family trip, Japan 2025," addressed to a long list of recipients. My name was included as co-owner, but I'd never been told about the trip. I sat back in my office chair, the hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. I had contributed to a family future fund for years, believing it was held in trust for emergencies or equal benefit. Now I watched my savings listed as a booking deposit. I asked myself, when did my savings become someone else's holiday? Later, I held printed bank statements in my hand as I walked into my parents' living room in Savannah. I spoke quietly, "I need to know why you booked a $15,000 trip to Japan using money from my account." My mother shrugged, saying, "We'll treat it as a loan," but offered no timeline or paper. My father stared out the window. Silence filled the room louder than their words. I felt anger and sadness rise together. Money wasn't the real wound anymore. It was the unspoken message, I belong to the background. They rewrote our story without me. Back at home, I retired to my office and laid out every transaction, my original deposit, the transfer, the travel agency invoice dated 4 months earlier. I drew a mental map, my savings, the emergency fund, Callista's trip package. I reflected on that old mantra, I'm helping family. But the truth, I underwrote someone else's dreams. I typed into a new document, assumption of my consent is not consent. My heartbeat settled, but the tension stayed. As dusk approached, I sat on the porch swing, lantern light casting long shadows around the yard. Humid air reminded me I was still in Georgia, still tied to a house that no longer felt like mine. A quote from Maya Angelou came to mind: "You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, but still, like air, I'll rise." For the first time, I added, "I will rise, and I will not rise alone." I opened a letter, firm, calm, addressed to my sister and parents. It laid out sums, asked for accountability, and set a deadline. I did not beg. I made a statement. The thunder rumbled in the distance as I pressed send. The email came at 6:43 a.m. I was pouring coffee when my phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Aaron's name. I opened it, expecting a reply that at least acknowledged the facts. Instead, there it was, 5 words that shifted everything. "Let's not make this ugly." No greeting. No explanation. Just a condescending warning dressed up as restraint. It was so like him, calm, patronizing, meant to sound wise while placing blame on me. He wanted control, not resolution. I read my own message again, word for word, just to be sure. I hadn't been emotional. I hadn't accused anyone of anything. I'd simply asked for transparency, for repayment, for respect. His response turned all of that into conflict. It was manipulation in a sentence, subtle, sharp, practiced. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "If they won't give me respect, they'll see what boundaries look like." That was the moment something in me shifted, quietly, but permanently. By late afternoon, I walked through Forsyth Park. The trees were turning, leaves drifting down like they'd finally given up their fight against gravity. The air smelled of rain and wood smoke. It was the kind of day that made you think about endings. I sat on a bench near the fountain and watched a little girl chasing pigeons, laughing without hesitation. That used to be me, before I learned that being the good one meant being the quiet one. Eleanor Roosevelt's words came to mind: "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." I had consented for far too long. That realization didn't make me angry, it steadied me. I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. The first, to my HR manager, to ask for a few personal days. The second, to my old attorney, who once told me, "Keep every receipt, Yara. People remember differently when you have proof." The third, to a therapist I'd never had the courage to call before. I wasn't looking for sympathy anymore. I was building a record, both legal and emotional. The kind of record that couldn't be erased by guilt or family ties. 3 days later, I asked them all to come: Mom, Dad, and Callista. I didn't want surprises. I wanted witnesses. My living room was neat, organized. Papers laid out across the coffee table like a courtroom exhibit. They came in separately. Mom first, clutching her purse as if it might protect her from accountability. Dad next, quiet, uneasy. Then Callista, on her phone, smirking like she already knew how this would go. "I want to clear the air," I began. My voice didn't shake. "You crossed a boundary, a legal and moral one. I'm giving you one chance to make this right." Mom frowned. "Yara, this isn't how families handle problems." Callista scoffed, "You're really dragging this out over money? You sound like a lawyer, not a sister." Dad sighed. "Let's just keep this calm, all right? No need to escalate." I met his eyes. Calm isn't the issue. Accountability is. I slid the papers toward them. 7 days. Full repayment. After that, I file in small claims court. No one spoke. The silence that followed was thick, too familiar. It wasn't surprise. It was entitlement. Their quiet was their answer: "You won't do it. You never do." I stood. "Then I guess we're done here." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every look, every word. Doubt crept in, whispering questions I didn't want to hear. Is family worth suing over? Is dignity worth the fracture? I remembered Christmas mornings I spent smiling while swallowing disappointment. Birthdays forgotten, favors returned with guilt. I'd let those moments pass because I thought keeping peace was worth it. But peace without respect isn't peace, it's surrender. I turned on the bedside lamp, grabbed my notebook, and started listing facts, dates, transfers, texts. It wasn't about rage anymore. It was clarity. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from finality. I knew this time I wasn't backing down. I was undoing a lifetime of silence, one step at a time. By morning, I was ready. I sat at my desk, printed the letters, 3 envelopes, each labeled and sealed with certified mail receipts. My handwriting was steady, my tone firm. The final line of each letter read, "I am not seeking revenge. I am claiming what is mine." I placed my pen down, exhaled, and felt the weight of years lift slightly. For the first time, my house felt calm, not empty, not cold, just mine. I gathered the envelopes, walked them to the mailbox, and let the metal door slam shut. The sound echoed like a gavel. For a moment, I stood still, watching the street quiet under the gray sky. I thought that might be the end of it. I thought I'd drawn the final line, until I saw what Callista posted that night. The moment I saw Callista's post, I stopped breathing. It was a cropped photo of the certified letter I'd mailed, the closing line circled in red, as if it were something to mock. The caption read, "Some people just love playing victim." It was already getting reactions. Laugh reacts. OMG, what happened? Comments. People tagging others. My hands went cold. This was supposed to be private, no, more than private, it was sacred. It was the first thing I'd done to protect myself in years. And now it was on Facebook. Public. I tapped the volume down on my phone, just to muffle the ringing in my ears. I stared at the post again. Watched it reload. More comments. One read, "Wow, someone's bitter." Another, "Family drama is the worst. LOL. I felt something sharp in my chest, not grief, not anger. It was betrayal cracking through shame. My thoughts raced, then stopped. I remembered a quote I once read, something like, "Once they turn your pain into content, you no longer own it." I tried to make this clean, quiet, fair. But they didn't want clean. They wanted a circus. I called Deacon. It was almost 9 p.m., but he answered right away. "They posted what?" he said, groggy. "Callista shared part of my letter. It's up right now. I need you to screenshot everything, comments, tags, the timestamp." "That's defamation territory," he muttered, now fully awake. "You have a copy of the letter?" "Of course." He exhaled. "Good. We'll need it." "Don't engage." "Not yet." After I hung up, I sat still for a moment, then opened my notes app. I drafted a public response. This letter was meant for private resolution. It's now been turned into something it was never intended to be. I won't be responding further at this time. I posted it. Just that. No hashtags. No dramatics. It sat on my page like a folded arm stance in the middle of chaos. My phone started lighting up. Texts from coworkers, "Are you okay?" "Ignore the noise. Some folks have no class." One from my old choir director, "Proud of you for standing up." That one hit deep. But then came the DMs, friends of friends asking for gossip. Old acquaintances trying to piece together years of silence. Strangers saying, "Wow, this is wild." I couldn't bring myself to open most of them. I got up and started walking in circles around the living room. The same space where I'd once watched sitcoms with my dad. The same walls I used to decorate for Christmas. Now it felt like a fishbowl. The next day, my mother suggested a family video call. Her text read, "Let's talk this through. No lawyers. Just family." Against my better judgment, I joined. Hair pulled back. Neutral blouse. No makeup. I wanted them to see my eyes. No distractions. The screen blinked to life. Callista was already smirking. My mother sat centered, arms folded. My father tried a smile I didn't return. Callista spoke first. "Maybe you're making more noise than the situation deserves?" I didn't flinch. "You shared my letter publicly." Dad jumped in, "We didn't think it'd spread like that." "You didn't think," I said. "That's the problem." My mother sighed dramatically. "Sweetheart, this isn't how family handles problems." "You're right," I said. "It isn't. But it's how I'm handling mine now." I pulled up the screenshot of the post. Held it up to the camera. This was a legal document. "You mocked it online. That's not a disagreement, that's defamation." They looked stunned. I kept going. "I gave you a chance. A week." No one replied. "So now we move forward." Dad tried to play diplomat. "Let's all cool down, okay? This is getting out of hand." I leaned in. "It got out of hand when you treated my boundaries like suggestions." Callista's smirk faded. My mother looked like she wanted to cry. I ended the call. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my car outside the house, just letting the air conditioning hum over my thoughts. My breath fogged up the glass. I stared out at the empty street. I opened my tablet and started a list. Preserve screenshots. Draft formal press statement. Consult PR specialist. Log all calls and messages. I stared at the list. Then added one more line. No more forgiveness without consequence. Fear was still there, of course. But under it? Something solid. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was documenting. Preparing. Learning the rules that always used to win and rewriting them. The next morning, just after sunrise, I made coffee and opened my email. Subject, urgent account notice, joint account activity. The bank. I blinked. Clicked it open. My jaw clenched. They were moving money. Not just theirs. Mine. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "They took my money." I stood, walked to the kitchen window, and stared out at nothing. They're going to answer for this. To me. And to the world. The sun hadn't even broken through the blinds when my phone lit up. Deacon Mars. I hadn't heard his voice in years, but I knew it instantly. "You up?" he asked. No small talk. Just that. "I think it's time you looked at what you still own." Half an hour later, I was on the floor of my study, pulling out the old navy blue folder from a storage box marked 2015. The thing smelled like dust and time. Inside, buried beneath old invoices and brochures, was the original co-founding contract for Cade Family Holdings. My name in pen. Co-founder. No expiration. No clause about forfeiture. No signature from me walking away. I froze. For years, I believed they phased me out, that somehow I'd agreed to disappear. But I hadn't. They just acted like I had. A strange calm settled over me. I wasn't angry. Not in that moment. I was clear. This wasn't about fighting anymore. It was about reclaiming what had never truly left my name. Later that night, I sat in my home office with 2 screens glowing and a third blinking with emails. I opened every bank statement, every transfer notification, every invoice that bore my initials. I pulled up the spreadsheet and began building the map: deposits I made, checks I signed, emails they copied me on back then. Deacon emailed me an annotated version of the contract with the subject line, "They never bought you out. They just went around you." I whispered the words out loud, then jotted a quote onto a sticky note beside me: "You don't find your voice, you use it." By 2 a.m., I had the beginning of a full strategy. 1 column, legal filings. Another, public statement drafts. A third, media leads and reputation management contacts. I didn't sleep. I didn't want to. The next day, I requested a meeting. Not a lunch. Not a call. A formal, sit-down appointment at the Savannah showroom, our original flagship space, the one I had helped lease. They showed up just after 5. Mom, Dad, Callista, and her husband, Aaron. I was already there, seated, a thick folder on the table in front of me. I didn't offer drinks. No pleasantries. I opened with a line I'd rehearsed in the mirror: "You wrote checks and counted me out. But you never cashed reality." Callista narrowed her eyes. My mother blinked like she was struggling to process. My father cleared his throat, as if he thought he might mediate. Aaron stayed silent. I slid a copy of the original contract across the table. This never expired. I never gave it up. I never signed it away. And yet, I see transfers made, funds shifted, business decisions executed without my knowledge. I handed out timelines to each of them. Highlighted. Dated. Annotated. You have 72 hours. Then I escalate. No one spoke. I didn't wait for them to. That night, well past midnight, my phone buzzed. Aaron. Just one message: they're meeting. Watch your inbox. By sunrise, they had it. My team's official press release. The public version of my ownership contract. Timeline of all transactions tied to my name. Posted. Filed. Sent. No more waiting. They always assumed I needed their approval. What they didn't see was how much stronger I got without it. I booked a one-way ticket to Atlanta. Just to carry on. Enough clothes for 3 days. I'd meet Deacon in person and finalize every filing. Before leaving, I stood in front of the mirror. Not to check my outfit. Just to look. That woman staring back at me, she didn't need permission. She didn't tremble. I whispered, "This isn't revenge. It's reclamation." As I zipped my bag, my phone buzzed again. Court clerk notification. Subject: motion acknowledged. State of Georgia. Case 2025 K0456. I breathed in, steady. This was the shift. The turn. At 6:42 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I was already awake, had been since 5, just lying there, listening to the fridge hum in the next room. The notification read, Deacon Mars has shared a file with you. A second buzz came seconds later, media release confirmed to Georgia Business Daily. I sat up, heart knocking at my ribs. I opened the file, Cade Family Financial Irregularities, Case Files. The title alone sent a pulse through my chest. Page after page of clean, labeled documentation. Fund transfers. Misused accounts. Payments made in my name with zero approval. Everything I'd whispered about in my own mind, now laid out in a public ledger. I scrolled back to the top and stared at the logo Deacon's firm stamped across each page. It was real. Documented. Shared. Official. For a long time, I'd been the only one in the room carrying the truth like a weight. Now, that weight had been lifted into sunlight. And just like that, the story wasn't a secret anymore. My inbox pinged. Local outlets picked it up first. Then the financial blogs. Then social media. By lunchtime, one headline read, Cade Holdings named in family fraud expose. And beneath it, a quote, sunlight is the best disinfectant. The facade cracked quickly. Mom's friend from the HOA group posted something vague about people changing when money's involved. Callista went quiet on Instagram. The family's usual polished responses, polite smiles, vague statements, now felt brittle. Unconvincing. That evening, just as I was setting a mug of tea on the windowsill, my phone rang. Dad, it said. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, he sent a text. Odessa. Check your email. I hesitated, then opened the inbox. Subject line, for your records. Inside, an attachment, tcadecall_041525.mp3. I clicked play. Mom's voice came through first, clear, clipped, let's just use her savings, she won't notice until it's done. My lungs didn't move for a beat. I hit pause, rewind, played it again. Let's just use her savings, she won't notice. That clip was everything. Truth, betrayal, evidence. Dad's message had no explanation. No apology. Just the audio. I replied, thank you for finally telling the truth. He didn't answer. Overnight, Cade Holdings stock dipped 6%. Small investors started asking questions. Callista's influencer brand took heat, comments flooded in, funded by fraud? Family first until finances get exposed. I watched the chaos unfold from my couch. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I just watched the system collapse in on itself. Once, I thought they were the architects. Now I saw they were just actors, grasping at a script that didn't hold anymore. The business had been their shield, their sword. Now, it was a mirror, reflecting every misstep. Later that night, I scrolled through DMs and emails. Most I ignored. But some stopped me. You helped me find my voice. Thank you for showing us how not to stay small. I hadn't planned on becoming a symbol for anything. But truth has a way of echoing. I opened my laptop and logged into the webinar portal I'd signed up for, Reclaiming Financial Autonomy in Family Businesses. I'd agreed to speak next week, had almost canceled it. But now? Now I understood why I needed to be there. This wasn't just my story. It was a page in a much bigger book. I made a new note in my planner, turn pain into purpose. And then I called Aaron. Hey, I said. This ends Monday. I will not withdraw. He didn't argue. The next morning, just after breakfast, I uploaded the motion to the Fulton County Court site, referencing the original contract, the financial audit, the recorded phone call. I CC'd the family email thread, attached a screenshot of the filing. And then I posted it to LinkedIn and X. Simple caption: transparency isn't vengeance. It's responsibility. And for the first time in months, I opened my jewelry box. There it was, tucked under a velvet pouch. A necklace I hadn't worn in years. WD's. We don't speak. That used to mean shame. Now? I held it to the light, took a photo, and posted it. No hashtags. No quote. Just the photo. Let the silence say the rest. I kept the browser tab open. Kate Holdings under investigation was the headline. I didn't click through to every article, didn't need to. The emails, the alerts, the wake-up calls, they all built the same message. Sponsors pulled out of Callista's campaign. The influencer posts were still live, but comments exploded. Fraud? Family business run by kids and lies? I felt vindicated. But I also felt the ache. The family I knew was falling apart. Power concedes nothing without a demand. I pocketed my phone and closed the laptop. For the first time, I was quiet and still. Victory mingled with sorrow. At the community hall in Savannah, I sat in the back row, listening as someone mentioned the scandal under their breath. My mother stood at the front, face pale, trying to answer questions she couldn't meet. I walked to the podium. Voice clear. I'm Odessa Raynell. I'm reclaiming what was mine. Some nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably. I realized the table I used to help set, I now took a seat at. From silent service to speaking up. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with purpose. I looked around the room knowing I was seen for the first time. They picked up on it. The moment was awkward and powerful. When I got home, I found the envelope on my desk, last check. My eyes traced the number and read the memo line I had written, final balance. I placed the check beside my notebook. I photographed it and uploaded to my blog about financial autonomy. I wrote simply, it's not about the money, it's about the message. I deleted the old photo of my necklace engraved WDS, we don't speak, and sent a message to my mentee, we're your value, not someone's version of it. In that act I released the old version of me. I exhaled. I felt free. Early one morning I started the car, suitcase in the back seat. I drove south along the coast, the Golden Isles unfolding in front of me. Kelly Clarkson's This Is Me played softly on the radio. I'm stronger than I've been. I dialed my mentor, my financial counselor, a few friends who supported me. I told them this was a new chapter. I thought, I didn't win by destroying them. I won by building myself. The sun rose over the salt marsh as I emptied the weight I carried for years. The fatigue of always being the one used and ignored lifted. The road felt open. Later, I opened my journal on the beach, waves whispering, gulls distant. I wrote, today I didn't say goodbye. I said see you from far away. I committed to host a webinar, When Your Family Fails to Honor You, How to Rebuild. My inbox pinged, one email from a woman I had never met. Because of your story, I found my own voice. I smiled. Not with glee, but with slow contentment. The car door closed behind me. The salt air filled my lungs. Change is here.